Monday, everybody. This is Monday Night Baseball on the South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network. And this is 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. Tonight, the crew is Candy Ebling. Candy.
Yes, Mr. Scott. How are you tonight?
Doing just great. And we have GE George Eichhorn. We bring good broadcast to life.
My fellow author friend. How you doing, everyone?
We're doing all right. And last but not least, my alum, Bradley Walker. Welcome to the broadcast, a sports nerd, as he calls himself.
Good evening, guys.
All right. Well, just to give everybody an overview, what we're talking about tonight, talk about JD Martinez, talk about former Tiger Eduardo Rodriguez, now with the Diamondbacks. Texas Rangers have Michael Lorenzen, once upon a time a Tiger. And we'll talk about the Miami Marlins depleted pitching staff. Things are going to be a little bit challenging for the fish that reside in a place once called the Orange Bowl. And, of course, Brandon Woodruff. Candy will handle that all on her own, and we'll make a rest in peace reference. But before I do that, hello, Jesse Stuber. Glad to have you on the show tonight, Jesse. And Candy Ebling will be manning the chat room. Hopefully we'll have a lot of activity in there tonight. Good to see you, Jess. All right, let's get this bad boy started. JD Martinez lands with the New York Mets. 1 year, $12 million deal. He blames teams not trying to win for a slow off season. And FYI, the guy's 36 years of age. So here's the thing. JD Martinez was looking for a 2-year deal, $15 million a season. And thankfully for his own good, he ended up getting a 1-year deal at $12 million. The last time we did this show, many of us thought he had a shot at coming to the Miami Marlins. That situation never came to fruition. All right. You know what, George Eichhorn? We revisit it. What do you think about JD Martinez with the Mets?
It doesn't surprise me at all, Scott, because the Mets obviously are known for, spending the money on players they feel that can obviously help their ball club. It kind of backfired, as we know, with last year and Max Scherzer and his injury. And I really think that this is a good fit, though, because JD's a good man. He's a solid guy in the clubhouse. He'll get you 20 home runs and 90 RBIs if he plays regular. Obviously, more suited for the DH position. He doesn't have much left really in the outfield, I don't believe, as far as defense goes. So I think it's a win-win for the Mets. I mean, they didn't spend a lot of money, and like you said, JD, he wanted 2 years. He only got one. That's the life of a baseball free agent nowadays, especially an older free agent. Let's say, it's just that way. So, but I think it's a good deal for the Mets. He's a solid player, and they can still hit the ball.
All right. Well, before we go to Brad, it looks like Joshua Bernstein's got a nickname for you, Bradley Sloop Langford. I don't know where he came up with that one, but here you go. When you're on this broadcast long enough, you get nicknames, and Mr. Bernstein is the king of the names. So he's happy to have you back on. And Blake Lozinski, good evening to you as well, my friend. So expect this chat room to get busy.
Thanks,
so with that said, Brad, you know what? You're up. What do you think of JD Martinez landing in the Big Apple at Citi Field?
Well, as a Red Sox fan, he played for us for a few years. And JD, he'll fit well in New York. He got the right kind of contract. George is right. He really can't play the field, and they already have a pretty locked at first base, so they're not going to put him at first base. And being that the league went to a international or a all-around DH, he'll fit well in New York. Hopefully, with the Mets, it doesn't blow up like it did last year with Scherzer and Verlander, and that blew up. And yeah, we all know that story. So hopefully, it doesn't end up that way this year for the Mets.
All right, George, you got an. I'll tell you what, I've never thought about this in 44 years of knowing you. George, the Eichhorn. My goodness.
I've been known to be called an Acorn once in a while.
Really?
That's a good one. Thank you, Josh.
Good job, Josh. Well, look at this. Oh, we got the Lozinskis in here. Good stuff. All right, Candy. Some thoughts about Mr. Martinez headed to the Big Apple.
JD has had a long career. but he is not a fielder anymore. He is strictly a designated hitter. So because of that, and because they've waited so long, and because he hasn't done a lot of reps, he's being optioned to the minor leagues for at least the first 10 games. He will not be with the Mets. So he needs more reps to get up to speed so he can be the designated hitter. You know, I have a problem with paying a lot of money, and maybe 12 million doesn't seem like a lot of money to some of you, for an okay at bat that can only at bat. He's not a position player. So the problem I have is there are so many people that are getting injured that I think you're really limiting yourself. I mean, good for him, because let's face it, he's 36 years old and he's going to earn $12 million this year. DHing, all he's going to do is bat, and then he's going to run. And if he doesn't even, maybe he might not even run that much. Maybe they might even sub somebody in there, for his DHing. You just never know. But this game has gotten to the point where it's so specialized that you can only do one thing. You can only do this. I mean, except for I hate to say this, and I know there's a scandal going on about Shohei Ohtani right now, but he can do both. I mean, he pitches and he plays. Like, you're paying him a lot of money to do all of that. But JD Martinez, he's getting $12 million to start the first of the year in the minors and then come up and only be a DH. I mean, kudos to him, because he even gave up his number. He's gonna wear number 28 because the Mets manager, Carlos Mendoza, takes number 64, which used to be his number. I mean, he was with the Dodgers last year. He hit 33 home runs, 103 ribbies over 113 games. So that's a lot of ribbies, don't get me wrong. But I'm just starting to have a hard time with a lot of these big money contracts, period. I mean, let's face it, they're playing a game, and I'm not qualified to play the game, but I'm not going to get paid $12 million in how many years? I get it. I think salaries of all entertainment fields are way out of whack, but that's what they get, so that's what it is. So,
all right, back to the chat room. Good evening, Duncan Lozinski. All right, Joshua Bernstein, JD is Jimmy Dean. All right, I'm not sure where we're going with that one. And here's a guy that's telling you like it is. Joshua, I won't watch baseball until they bring back tackling the catcher. Okay. Joshua, I have a question for you, and I have no problem with collisions. Have you ever been a catcher before and been on the wrong end of those things? And if you really want to go back to your history books, why don't you look back to Ray Fosse and Pete Rose, and then you'll wonder how badly it ended for Ray Fosse, who, by the way, I did have a chance to interview when I was covering the Oakland A's out in Arizona. All right, but it's a good point. You have the right to voice your opinion on whether you don't want to watch the game and I appreciate it, but that's one of the reasons they tried to make the game safer. And if you're a catcher and you're on the wrong end, Josh, I got news for it. It hurts. Although I didn't mind it myself. All right, Duncan Lozinski, I have a doubleheader of softball this Wednesday. Was it South Florida Tribune? Good luck to you there,
wish
Duncan.
you luck.
All right. All right, you got it. So as far as I'm concerned, that's the only fun part of the game, Josh. Okay, I can appreciate where you're coming from. All opinions are welcome. That's what you feel makes it interesting. So as far as JD Martinez, you got the age. He waited along, and he's definitely going ahead. Did you get that, Jesse? We mentioned you. What about my chat, man? All right, Candy, put it up there so I can go out there. What about my chat, man? What about the one before that? All right, I think I mentioned it. Well, so here we go. Where's Ryan Hoffman at tonight? Who's Ryan Hoffman? I don't know. What's up, Scott? We're up there, Jesse. Good stuff. Okay, so there we go. So now, as far as JD Martinez is concerned, 36 years of age, specialized position, designated hitter. A lot of owners don't want to pay older players. You look at, even though this is a 1-year deal that he was fortunate to get, all you need to do is look at Albert Pujols and Miguel Cabrera. And when you start playing older players, it's another story. Although this is designated hitter, owners are just not keen on paying these guys as much money as they have to. Although, again, the Mets can use a designated hitter. I feel that they ended up getting a good they ended up making a good value pick. Now, whether or not Alonso is going to be there. I'm trying to remember his first name. Help me out a little bit there.
Pete.
Pete Alonso will be there. Time will tell. And he says Duncan plays center bench. There you go. All right, Joshua. All right. As we continue on, Arizona Diamondbacks left-handed pitcher Eduardo Rodriguez, a former Tiger, will start the season on the injured list after suffering a left pat strain in the most recent start. Manager Torey Lovello announced it on Friday. He signed a 4-year, $80 million contract in December. He was 13-9 in 152.2 innings, 443 strikeouts, 44 base on balls with a 3.30 ERA. George, I know that at times Rodriguez had some problems in Detroit, and I can definitely appreciate Torey Lovello taking the cautious route. But what do you think about Mr. Rodriguez so far in Arizona?
Well, I was not happy, to be honest with you. My opinion was I wish the Tigers could have somehow convinced him to stay, but he opted out of that, final 3 years of his contract and became a free agent, as we know, back in November. And then 1 month later, he signed a 4-year, I believe it was $80 million contract with the Diamondbacks. He's a good pitcher. He's a solid pitcher. He's a good guy. Again, I mentioned that about JD, but I'll say it again. Eduardo's a good man in the locker room, too. He doesn't screw around or anything like that. He takes the game seriously. I feel bad, but this happens a lot to pitchers. A lot of pitchers are hurt. A lot of players are hurt in baseball, but he's got a good manager there, Torey Lovello, as you mentioned, an ex-Tiger. And Rodriguez, the Tigers held on. They didn't want to give him to the Dodgers last year. Remember at the trading deadline? And it came to bite him because, in a sense, because they, lost him. And they certainly could have used him in Detroit. But that being said, Arizona is going to be a good stop for him. Warm weather area. He's not going to have to play around too much with the cold weather, except when he goes on the road. And again, I'm sorry he got hurt. But there's so many pitchers that have strains and hurts. It goes up and down the rosters of various teams. But Eduardo is going to help the D-backs. I firmly believe that.
Okay, Blake, you know what? Okay, Brad, he's got a question for you, so let's go right to it. All right, well, all right, let's go here. We'll start off with what question for Valley? What are your thoughts on the Marlins this season? This one's to you, Brad.
Well, the Marlins, being that I live in Florida and I'm closer to the Rays than I am the Marlins, being that I'm not too far from Tropicana Field in St. Pete. The Marlins, again, it comes down to pitching, and I think Scott mentioned that earlier, that they were suffering with some injuries.
Yeah, which we're going to get to a little bit later in the show too, Blake and Josh, but that's okay. He'll give you some basic thoughts now that we're going to get into
that question later on after we go through that.
Well, just give some basic thoughts. That's what he wants right now.
Basic thoughts. They're a middle pack team. The NL East, they have a shot. They have a good enough team. They're young. So anytime that you have a young team, they got a shot. So
okay. All right, let's go to Joshua's other question. Bradley, what are your thoughts of the length, and I repeat, length of the MLB season? This is a good question.
The length of the MLB season, honestly, it's too long. Honestly, it needs to be short, but I know they're not going to shorten it because of the money. It's too long of a season, obviously, with the other, 3 sports, with hockey and basketball being 82 games, football now being 18. It's too long of a season. But again, owners make too much money, and that's, nothing's going to change, but it is too long.
Okay. All right, Joshua has another question. Are you a fan of Podwika Harrison?
I don't even know who that is.
I don't either, Josh. So no answer there. Good question, Josh. Okay, let's continue on. All right, so Brad, you can address this question as well. We talked about Eduardo Rodriguez, Torey Lovello playing it safe. They handling it the right way.
Another former Red Sox before he was a Tiger. He's with the Boston Red Sox. I think it's a good landing point for him. Arizona obviously was in the World Series last year and fell short. Again, said earlier, he won't have to pitch in cold weather. They play in an indoor stadium in Arizona, so it'll be nice. I mean, he did deserve the contract that he got. So yeah, I think it's a good landing spot for him in Arizona.
Okay, Candy, same question to you. Eduardo Rodriguez in the desert.
So my question, I guess, back at everybody is Rodriguez, did he always pitch? Like, has he always been a pitcher growing up? And the reason why I ask this is because these strains that are coming up, is it because he's only worked those muscles? We had a show last year, and when we were talking about with a trainer and stuff, and they were talking about how you have to be well-rounded when you grow up and when you're going through the motions and all the different sports, because then you're being more well-rounded. All your muscles get worked out. And so what I'm afraid of is that they don't do all of this. They're always just this one sport per team member. And I get it. Now he's in the major leagues. But has he always just done that? Because if he always keeps just doing that, he's always working the same muscles and straining the same muscles. And the question would be is, how did they bring him along in spring training that he's already got a strain on, that they're working out? In fact, they even confirmed it under an MRI. So he's going to be missing opening day. They feel that he felt the tightness. They feel he'll be back pretty soon, but here again, is it a trainer issue? Is it how they trained in the beginning of opening season or since they opened camp back in February, that we're talking a month and 6 weeks, and he's already got injuries, and he's not the only one. So my question is what are we doing that all these injuries are happening, especially now?
Good points. You know what? Ending the topic here, my only concern about Eduardo Rodriguez is his durability. I know he had durability issues with Detroit. Had a great year last year. There's no question about it, which earned him a raise. And he had the opt-out, certainly took advantage of it. And he's a guy that the Red Sox really were not in any hurry to sign the guy, which made it available for the Detroit Tigers to do that. So now we'll have to find out. Yes, he's going to be in a dry climate in Arizona. I've lived there before. I loved Arizona. I actually moved to Florida to be closer to my parents, and it worked out well. Not only was I closer to them, but I met the woman on this screen here, Candy, and it worked out really well. But what the question is Eduardo Rodriguez durability over the long haul. That, to me, I need to see. I'm not so sure I've seen enough of it. We'll see how it plays out in a month or two from now when we revisit. All right, back to Joshua Bernstein, Candy. All right, well, I'll tell you, Bradley, getting a lot of love tonight from Mr. Bernstein. How'd you get it so into baseball? You were like a baseball encyclopedia.
Josh, I got into baseball. Actually, everybody asked me how I live in Florida and why I'm a Boston Red Sox fan. When I became a baseball fan, the Red Sox were the underdog. The big bad Yankees were the rulers of baseball. No one could beat them. So you cheer for the underdog. Now the underdog isn't an underdog anymore. I know the Red Sox have had a couple bad seasons, but that's how I became a baseball fan. Baseball encyclopedia, the thing about it, Josh, is when I get into a certain sport, whether it's football, hockey, golf, or whatever, I like to go back and study the past up until now. So yeah, I mean, I'm one of those people who believes that Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame. And thinking back to Ohtani, if he really did do this betting thing, then if they're going to keep him in the league, then you got to put Pete in the Hall of Fame. Got to be fair here. So we'll see if Rob Manfred does the right thing. But I don't trust Rob Manfred. I think he's the worst commissioner in all of sports. That's my opinion.
Well, thanks for the kind of words, Josh. Very mighty kind of you. Bradley, you're going to have a hell of a career in broadcasting. Stick to it.
Thanks, Josh.
He is a legend of the game. Thanks, Josh. That was nice of you. Josh Bernstein, here's a guy that always contributes well in the chat room, and eventually he's going to make his way on the air. But that was very kind of you. All right, back to I'll just recap what I said about Rodriguez. It'll all depend on his durability over the next few years and make sure he's handled properly. We'll leave it at that. Well, we have a pitching theme tonight. We'll continue with that. Texas Rangers signed former Tiger and Philly Michael Lorenzen, who's 32 years of age in his own right, to a one-year contract worth $4.5 million. He can earn an additional $2.5 million in incentives. Now, bear in mind that Michael Lorenzen was an all-star with Detroit. He had a 3.58 earned run average. In Philly, he had a no-hitter his first game. Talk about first impressions. He definitely had one there. But the problem was he stumbled the rest of the way with a 5.51 earned run average. So, all right, George, I'll stick with you again on this one. So,
well, again, the Tigers were in a situation where they wanted to get a maximum value they could for a veteran starting pitcher. It's a situation that some of the teams do where they sign a guy that for 1-year deals and then they want to trade him at the deadline and try to get as much as they can for him. They know they're not going to contend or win the division, etc. So Michael Lorenzen, the Tigers did a really good job. I mean, the pitching staff and manager AJ Hinch developed him into a really good pitcher. And then lo and behold, on August 1st of last year, he was traded, as you mentioned. And basically he had a great, start. I mean, he had that no-hitter and a great start with Philly, but then they kind of tagged him for a lot of runs there at the latter part of the season. So I think, again, you're looking at a situation where I like the guy. I hope he does have a bounce back. But, you just got to watch out for those injuries. And the Tigers got a minor league prospect out of the deal. So he's not the gentleman they got, Taiwanese infielder named Lee. He's not going to obviously make the team. He did not make the Tigers, nor was he expected to. He's just a young man. They're trying to develop him. He's only 21 years old. So the Tigers hope they got something out of him. But again, a situation where Lorenzen wasn't part of the Tigers' future. They weren't going to pay him as much as he wanted, and he got traded to Philly. I wish him well. I think he's a decent pitcher, though.
yeah, the name that the prospect you're talking about, YuLee. So, it's one of those things where, you have a rental for 1 year, you bring in a young prospect, you never know what he can do later on. So I think the Tigers got what they could get out of a guy who just signed as a rental, and you go from there. All right, Candy, I'm going to turn it over to you this time on this one.
So Lorenzen, he $4.5 million contract with the Rangers. Let's face it, the Rangers rotation needs help right now with Matt Scherzer out, Jacob deGrom out, and Tyler Mahle elbow. He's out for at least the first several months of the year. So they needed to do something, and they need to do something quick because everybody's gunning for him. So they needed to do something. Again, all these pitchers getting injured. We need to really go back and look at and see why all of them are getting injured. Are they trying to throw too hard? Are they trying to throw too special of a pitch? Are we not coaching are we not looking at form enough or something? They're going to have to do something because they just keep getting injured and they get paid these lot of money. So what you're going to see is pitchers are going to make a boatload of money early on with early contracts because they're not going to be able to last long. I think the days of, playing forever, especially on a pitcher, because they won't have the arm to do it. So you're going to see them getting really paid high for a few short years.
Okay.
That's mine.
All right, Candy, why don't you go out there and talk about the company information, then we'll turn over to Bradley afterwards.
Well, let's let Bradley finish the
all right,
topic.
Brad,
He's done with the topic.
All right, Brad, you go ahead and we'll take your opinion and Candy over the company information.
I think baseball has changed as far as pitching goes. Back in the day, there would be starting pitchers would go 9 innings. There's not a lot of pitchers that are going to go complete games anymore. With analytics now being a big part of the sport, after 4 or 5 innings, they're taking starters out. So of course, what you'll do is you get these guys, former starters that can carry a 4 or 5 innings, 3 or 4 innings. You bring them in to help save your bullpen, get to your late inning guys, your closer, stuff like that. So that's what these guys are. Like Candy's right. the day of the, multi-million. I mean, I could go back to Chris Sale with the Red Sox. They signed him to a big long-term deal. He's gone. So yeah, I think the days of signing pitchers to long-term deals is out the window, because here in Tampa, we have the opening day where they have the bullpen day where they just let the bullpen guys throw out. I think baseball is going to adopt that league wide, and starting pitchers are going to be a foregone conclusion here in the near future.
All right, Josh, to answer your question about whether Brad will be on next week, we usually make those decisions over the weekend. Sometimes we bring a analyst on a couple times a month, whatever. It just depends on what we have in the pipeline. So, but you will be seeing a fair amount of Bradley. So there you go. All right. So before we get to your question, Blake, Candy will go over some company information, and I promise you we'll get to that. Okay.
So first and foremost, this book Scott wrote, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It's available Amazon, Kindle, Barnes & Noble. Buy your copy today. It talks about media and how media has changed over the 40 plus years he's been in the business. It has some good little things. That has some pictures, has a picture of Scott Young when he interviewed Muhammad Ali. It has, I believe, a picture of him and Tommy Lasorda. You name it, you got to get the book and read to find out who else he's interviewed of the greats that he's interviewed. But as far as company information, if you like to listen to podcasts, you can get this on iHeartRadio, Google, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. Wherever it could be. It could be Podcast Addict. I don't know. We always broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube. In that lower right corner by Scott right now, if you see a red subscribe button, that means you have not subscribed to our channel. And I honestly do not know why you wouldn't have already. But please hit it, like us, share us, spread our content to everybody. If you want to advertise or sponsor a show, call Scott 954-304-4941. If you want to make all kinds of comments in our chat room, we'd love it. If you want to come on a future show, you just never know. Make some comments and you might find yourself appearing on a show. You just never know. Tonight, obviously, is baseball. We talk baseball on Monday nights. We talk football on Tuesday nights. Wednesday night is Sports Exchange. You never know what sport we're going to be talking on that. Anywhere from NFL to hockey to cornhole. Thursday nights, Pundit's Pundit and Fire Up. And you just never know what we're going to be talking about on either of those shows either. Scott, back to you.
And don't forget the Motor City Mad Mouse show ahead of the Sports Exchange. All right. We have a question. All right, George, you're going to answer this one from Blake Lozinski. Okay. How is artificial intelligence improving the game of baseball?
Well, I don't know about artificial intelligence. I just know that analytics is affecting baseball for sure. I mean, we've hired staff. The teams have hired staff full-time, several staff members working on analytics to try to dissect different things that a pitcher does in a certain situation or should be doing, or a hitter, and what type of breaking ball he should be looking for, or whatever. So as far as artificial intelligence, AI is just too much to learn about that right now as far as how it will impact sports, especially baseball. But like I said, definitely baseball has gone full time into analytics, and that kind of backs up with Bradley, what you just said a few minutes ago with the art of pitching. And what we're seeing now is specialized pitchers, and starters who only go a short time, or like you said, by committee, a starting staff by committee for a certain game that managers are doing now, with pitchers going only 1 or 2 innings and not having a true starter. So that's a long about answer. That's all I got to say, because I don't know enough yet about artificial intelligence. But like I said, analytics rules baseball right now.
Yeah, you're talking about openers. You're talking about openers. I struggle with that. The combined no hitters. And I understand they're a no hitter. I always have my questions as to who actually gets credit for the no hitter, the starter or whoever. So to me, there's certain things that I really don't like about it. Josh, I got to run. I'll be back later, folks. All right. Glad to have you on, Joshua. Much appreciated. So there are a lot of things that are out there, Blake, to me that I do struggle with to this day. And certainly appreciate you bringing it up. So, but that said, our final topic for the group tonight does talk about the Miami Marlins. Pitching staff will be decimated. Sandy Alcantara is going to be missing all of 2024. Braxton Garrett, Edward Cabrera will be missing the beginning of the year. And now YuLee Perez, who's 20 years of age, one of the Marlins' top prospects, has elbow inflammation, and we'll find out in the next multiple weeks. There's no surgery yet, sources have told Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald and Craig Mish. So with that said, okay, well, Jesse, you're going to make some burgers and have some IPA beers. Sounds good. Okay, send a few out our way. So, all right, you know what? I'm going to start off with Bradley. Marlins opening day pitching staff doesn't look very good. We'll see who they actually throw out on the hill on Thursday against the Pittsburgh Pirates. So,
yeah, obviously you need starting pitching, pitching and defense wins championships, as they say. What Miami's going to have to do is they're going to have to do the pitch by committee until some of these guys get back and get healthy. Again, they're young. If the Marlins have done well with their farm system, you bring the kids up from the minors, and again, just hope and pray you don't burn them out, or they can hold the ship on station until the starters get back. But yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of like a league wide thing. I know with the Rays, same thing with them. Their starting pitching is beat up. Shane McClanahan's out for the year. So I mean, yeah, it's just pitching by committee, and hopefully you can hold it down until those guys get back and get healthy.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I know Skip Schumacher and Mel Stottlemyre Jr. are going to have their hands full, especially the first couple weeks, 2 to 4 weeks of the year. So with that said, we'll turn it over to Candy Ebling.
Well, and let's not forget that Sandy is out for the whole year because he had surgery. So not only do they have Braxton, Eduardo, and now YuLee, they already were missing Sandy Alcantara. So they've already named that the starting pitcher for Thursday night is Jesus Luzardo. He's going to be like their go-to, their number one this year with Sandy out. Again, this kid is 20 years old and he already has elbow inflammation. He hasn't pitched since March 13th, which is when he first felt the soreness. Again, we're going here with the pitchers. And again, like this guy is young. He hasn't even pitched that much. He only pitched some games last year. And he had problems last year, like with soreness and stuff like that. So again, with the specialty and I think throwing too hard and, maybe we don't need as much warm up as they thought, or maybe we, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I just know the answer is not paying these guys millions of dollars to sit on the bench injured.
Okay, George.
It's a very tough situation for the Marlins. And as you mentioned, for Mel Stottlemyre, pitching coach, and I can't really say for sure, but it just seems like we have so many pitching injuries, like you guys have alluded to tonight on the show, and it just keeps going on and on and on. And I mean, Alcantara, what a great young talent he is, but to see him sidelined, obviously after that major surgery, Tommy John surgery, and the elbow, and it but you had mentioned, Scott, all the other injuries too that are piling up. It's just, the old saying, when it rains, it pours. But boy, oh boy, you got to feel for an organization when they try to field a team and put together a starting staff, and all these guys are hurt. And trust me, it happens to a lot of teams, not just the Marlins. But yeah, it's going to be difficult, Scott. I mean, for them to get out of the gate with any kind of consistency and any kind of winning record until some of these guys come back. And as we know, Sandy's not coming back at all this year. So it is a tough situation, and I agree with Candy. I mean, there's so many concerns because there are so many players that get injured, and especially pitchers. I don't know. I can't wave a magic wand and make that disappear, nor can any of us, but it does hurt the game, and it hurts your team. when so many of them are hurt like this.
Well, I remember mentioning Sandy at the top of the segment. Candy, you want to say something first? Go ahead.
What I was gonna say is, and the injuries that we're talking about, we're not talking about somebody was running around the bases and slid into a base and slid into another player and injured, or two players collided. We're talking about somebody doing their regular normal activities and getting injured because of soreness, throwing the ball and stuff like that. It takes me back, and I get this isn't quite the same, but I remember last year going to a game at the end of the year where we saw not one, but two position players, two catchers throwing 8th and 9th innings because they didn't have anybody else to go back into the bullpen. And so we're going to start seeing some of that because they're not going to have pitchers that are going to be able to, especially in the beginning of the season when they're still only throwing so many innings and throwing so many pitches. If you're down so many pitchers in the first place, watch out because you never know what kind of scores you're going to have on some of these games. Because if we have to start putting position players in there, the bats are going to go crazy. That's all I'm going to end with.
Well, excellent point. Yeah, we did see that scenario happen a couple of times for sure. Sandy Alcantara, number one, could pitch in any era because he goes deep into innings. He really does. So when I look at Sandy Alcantara, old school, okay, gives you 7 innings, 8 innings, 9 occasional complete game. And Don Mattingly is not the type of guy who would go out there and send anybody any further than he has to. He went with the feel for his pitcher, and so there's no fault on Don's part for sure, but you hate to see that happen, but hopefully my feeling is Sandy Alcantara will come back better than ever. As for the other young guys, well, just hope that the Marlins have enough pitching depth in that system because I have a feeling that Skip Schumacher and Mel Stottlemyre Jr. are going to go through a lot of arms, that's for sure. And, let's face it, Skip got him in the playoffs last year, and it was great to see them get there in a full season. But the sophomore year for Skip Schumacher could be a very challenging one if the Marlins can't avoid key injuries, let alone early in this season or throughout. Again, there was a good question of whether the baseball season was too long that it was brought up. Well, maybe it is, but you know what? It's been 162 games for a long time. Prior to that, it was 156, and it is the longest of any sport that there is out there. So baseball is not shortening that season. You just better make sure that with this expanded roster, I think that's like 26 and then 28 later in the year, that you might have to stockpile pitchers a little bit. And I have a feeling that's what they're going to have to do. Everybody commented on this. Thank you very much, Blake. We appreciate it. All right. So with that said, I have a segment here that Candy Ebling is going to have all to herself. Okay. She's going to talk about the Milwaukee Brewers right-handed pitcher, Brandon Woodruff, who obviously won't pitch in 2024 due to shoulder injury. So with that said, okay, Candy, take it away.
Yes, Brandon Woodruff. Good pitcher, but injury prone. He's 31. He went 5-1 with a 2.28 ERA in 11 starts last year, despite missing 4 months with a subcapillary strain in his shoulder. He hurt the shoulder again late in the season, preventing him from playing in the Brewers' National League Wildcard Series loss to the Arizona Diamondbacks. Because Woodruff was only under team control through the 2024 season and was expected to be injured for much of the year, the Brewers didn't tender him a contract in November, making him a free agent. He rejoined the Brewers in February on a backloaded $17.5 million 2-year contract that includes a mutual option for the 2026 season. Under the terms, Woodruff will receive $2.5 million this year and $5 million in 2025. The deal includes a $20 million mutual option for 2026 with a $10 million buyout, half payable on January 15th of 2026 and the remainder on July 15th of 2026. Woodruff has spent his entire career in Milwaukee and owns a 46-26 record with a 3.10 ERA and 788 strikeouts in 680 and a third innings. But his $2.5 million contract, remember that he's getting for this year, he won't pitch an inning. He said he underwent surgery in October. He was expected to miss most of the season, but he has told everybody now he will not play this season because he wants to have a year where his body can really heal completely. And so he'll be he feels his best, the best possible, get his body ready for pitching, basically. And he's going to take the whole year off. So $2.5 million for someone that's not going to pitch this year. But again, he's been one of the Brewers' starting pitchers for quite some time. The Brewers, they're going to try and contend, but it's going to be tough because they have injuries too. So with a new manager, starting your ace starter on the bench all year, it's going to be an interesting year.
But I'll tell you what, I do like the way the Brewers management set up that contract. I want to go back to a comment that Joshua Bernstein made. He says that Ohtani is the MLB, one of the few players I can name. Well, you know what, Joshua, to be honest with you, Ohtani, if you're not a casual baseball fan, okay, he's probably one of the few players that a lot of people can name. So I don't think you're alone in that, Josh. I really like the comment. I didn't know if I got to it, but I wanted to bring it up here later in the show. Candy, you're really right. Here's the deal. The Brewers did a good job restructuring that contract, extending it out a little bit. And you know what? Brandon Woodruff, to me, is just one of those types of guys that he is the anchor of your staff, and at least they're able to keep him under manageable circumstances. Good job on that segment. So with that said,
because remember, we traded Corbin Burns away to the Baltimore Orioles too.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they did. So now the Baltimore Orioles got a little bit richer in the pitching department, but we'll see whether that translates to a World Series for sure.
And I'm just going to say this. The Brewers have announced Freddie Peralta will be the Brewers starting pitcher for their season opener Thursday against none other but the New York Mets.
There you go. And the one thing I'll say about the Brewers, though, they do a very good job in player development as well. So, you know, that's how they've made their existence through the years is by player development. So you never know who will come out of their farm system. But good job on that segment, Candy. All right, we have one rest in peace before we wrap up the show. Rest in peace, Baltimore Orioles owner Peter Angelos, who died Saturday at the age of 94. So with that said, Bradley, let everybody know how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, guys, I have a show called The Walker Report on Thursday night, 8 to 10 Eastern time. You can catch me on there. We talk all sports. Invite everyone to come on, whether you know sports or don't. If you want to learn something, come over there. I also want to thank Scott and Candy real quick. Thank you for sharing one of my USF baseball articles. I caught that on X this afternoon, so I want to thank you. I'll keep sending you guys articles. I write for NGSC Sports, guys. It's nothing. I'm not trying to compete with Scott and the Tribune and stuff. That's a website that I write for. I've gotten credentials to USF Athletics through that publication. So looking forward to being at the spring game in a couple weeks on the 13th to see USF and Coach Golish's second season as head coach. But yeah, just catch me on either of my show. We have a YouTube channel called The Walker Report as well. Just like here, please like, share, and subscribe. Any of that, guys. Hopefully I'll be back on here. I would like to be a regular on here on Monday nights if that's doable, but that's up to Scott. But until then, guys, peace.
Well, let's put it this way. They're going to find you on this show anyway, so you don't have to worry about that. I just have to make sure I'm maneuvering. And by the way, as far as competition, there's no such competition. I read your article. You write well. No big deal. I mean, we're always welcome to put your copy up as well as share it as well. So, Brad, you're a nice guy, and I'm glad I had a chance to meet you in person when our alma mater stomped Syracuse 45-0 in the Boca Raton Bowl.
That was a beautiful football game.
Yeah, it really was a nice football game. A few times I can wear my USF shirt over in Boca Raton since our Owls and them are in the same conference. George, let everybody know how they get a hold of you.
All right. You can find me at the South Florida Tribune. I write under the Motor City Tribune. And you'll find there it is. Oh, yeah. Candy's got a copy of it right above her head. I brought along a copy too, Candy. There's a link to my book, Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air. You'll find that link, and you can get a book at Amazon or any other bookseller. Also, you could find me on Yahoo at gicorn@yahoo.com, on LinkedIn under George Icorn, and also SanG Sports 99 is my handle under X Twitter. You can find me on this wonderful baseball show, as I love baseball, as you all know, the Sports Exchange and Pundits Pundit, and wherever Scott and Candy need me. Great to be part of the South Florida Tribune lineup, guys.
All right, next Monday night, Mark Meredai, the barber, will be back, but he's out in Greece right now, and he's out there with a bunch of his student class. So I hope that Mark Meredai is hearing this throughout the world and know that, you know what, he's an educator, a teacher, and a very good one. And he was a natural to bring on the show for sure, especially when I met him out in Cooperstown as well. So Mark, hope you're having a good time. Looking forward to having you back next week, and we'll give more details as we go along. Hello, Ralph Williams. Good to see you tonight. All right, Candy, you know what? You did it before, and do it one more time. Give everybody our information as we wrap this broadcast up.
I first want to thank Jesse, Joshua, Blake, Duncan, and Ralph for all chiming in on the chat room. Without you guys, we wouldn't be here, and we love interacting with you, so keep it up. But most importantly, support the people that support us. So go check out Bradley's YouTube channel. Subscribe to his channel too, because without him, this show isn't the same. So we want to support him just like he's supporting us. So please go out, like and share his YouTube channel as well as ours, the South Florida Tribune's YouTube channel. George, I think the red button is right by you tonight, right now. So if you are seeing that red button, hit it, like it, share us, tell everybody about it. Especially if you know somebody that likes any of the topics that we talk about. Obviously, I said baseball is Monday nights, football is Tuesday nights, Wednesday night is Sports Exchange, any sport, and it also happens to be, because I forgot this the first time, Motor City Mad Mouse Show, where Scott interviews, and you never know who he's going to be interviewing next. It's typically a one-on-one. He does a great job, so you do not want to miss that. Thursday nights is Pundits, and Fire Up. You never know what we're going to be talking about on Fire Up, but I can tell you that if I'm on the show, my segment is My Town, where we talk about some topic that's happening in the town where the speaker either lives or grew up. Love it, love it, love it. If you like to listen to podcasts, we're on all the different podcast platforms. Like us, again, listen to us. Take us everywhere you want. One big ask. This book, you got to get it. You got to get it. Lessons from the Microphone. Again, it has all kinds of interesting interviews that Scott's done. I challenge you guys to go get the book and tell me who is the most interesting person that he has interviewed. I challenge all of you. Read the book. Amazon, Kindle, or Barnes & Noble. And you never know where it might be next. We're working on putting it on a couple more places. But if you'd like to advertise or sponsor this show, call Scott, 954-304-4941. If I'm talking too fast, it's scrolling on the bottom, and it's been scrolling all broadcast long, so you can catch it. You can always email us, southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you have ideas for the future shows, or if you have a guest that you know that you would love for us to interview, email us. I think that's pretty much, that might be a wrap, Scott.
Well, that may be a wrap. So with that said, I want to thank everybody for joining us on 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. Tomorrow night we have Inside the Pigskin. So on behalf of Candy, Bradley, and George, my name is Scott Morgan, Route the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. Enjoy opening day, because it is coming to a stadium near you. So good night, everybody, and I hope you have a great Tuesday. We'll be back tomorrow night on Inside the Pigskin. Good night, everybody.
Put me in, coach. I'm ready to play.